Ladies and gentlemen, after months of you in the comments begging me to learn something about Team Fortress 2's lore, the heavens have opened up and granted me TF2 lore in 15 minutes. I have the attention span of a Zoomer, so this is just right for me. Fun fact, no, of course not. The Zoomers, of course, have 30-second attention spans. This is literally 30 times longer than they could possibly tolerate.
I played TF2 around 10 years ago, and it's one of my favorite games. I have an embarrassing amount of hours on it, and an equally embarrassing YouTube channel, yet somehow was never interested by the lore. I decided recently to read all of it, and for those who would want a recap of everything that's happened in the TF2 lore universe, or for those who've never got around to it like me, here is TF2's lore in 15 minutes.
This is, I don't even know what to tell you guys. I don't care about the lore. And frankly, I don't know anyone who cares about the lore other than, of course, everyone who is really into TF2. And the dozens, maybe thousands of people who answered my question from Meet the Team that Demo Man's Knight isn't healed by Medic because it was cursed by Marasmus. I literally get that comment probably, I'm going to say twice a week.
I'm going to try and contain every key part from the comic series, which covers the main story. However, there are also smaller nuggets of lore that I can cover, so if you enjoy this video and you want more, I can create more videos about those smaller things.
I mean, let's be honest, guys. Lore channels are a staple of YouTube. Fallout lore, Halo lore, 40k lore. 40k lore, you can literally build a career on 40k lore.
It goes without saying, but condensing everything.
So that's why I'm announcing that my channel is going to be totally revamped to be just a Team Fortress 2 extremely serious lore channel. I'm going to be the arch of 40k lore, right? You're going to get a 30-part video, 45 minutes each of me talking like this, very slowly, as I talk about how Scout tried to eat the chicken. Oh God, what have I done?
In 1850, two continents what they are. So if you are eager for more after watching this, I'd recommend you still read the comics too. Anyway, let's get into it.
That's a joke. I'm not. The channel's gonna stay normal.
In 1850, two constantly squabbling sons, Redmond and Blutarch Man, convinced
Redmond and Blutarch Man?
Convinced their father, Zephaniah, to buy most of the New Mexico desert and to move there. Upon Zephaniah's death, his munitions company Manco was left to Barnabas Hale, and his gold to his maidservant Elizabeth, leaving.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah, this is actually a real thing. If you've ever seen estate law disputes, when you write a will, what often happens if you want to cut out a child, you can't just be like, to my son I leave X, to my other son I leave Y, and to my third son I leave nothing. Right? You can't just be like, you can't just distribute your assets. Be like, son A gets half, son B gets half, done. Well, if you have a third son, right, they can actually sue and argue that, hey, this will was written, for example, before I was born, or maybe my father, in his demented state, forgot that I existed. So surely I'm entitled to a third of the estate, and sometimes that wins. So in order to prove after your death that you did remember all of the claimants to your estate, it's common to leave the sum of $1 to someone who has been cut out of the estate, which is hilarious and a pretty big FU.
His sons nothing but a useless land. They then decided to fight for it until the day they died. Both hired mercenaries to seize the land from each other.
Okay, I love this old school mercenary. Abe Lincoln with a flamethrower. Chad. A delivery man who looks like someone who looks like John Henry. Oh, maybe this is Nikola Tesla. I could see Nikola Tesla being a mercenary. This looks like a not Doctor Strange villain, a Flash Gordon villain. In fact, these all kind of look like Flash Gordon villains. Maybe this is supposed to be Billy the Kid. Anyway, these mercenaries seem sort of, well, lame, but not as lame as
from each other.
Some of the mercs of TF2.
The following conflict has been continuing for over 120 years. In 1890, Blutarch hired the engineer's grandfather to create a device to grant immortality to outlive Redmond and then win the land. The maidservant used the money from their father to secretly convince him to create the exact same machine for Redmond. The machine was powered by Australium, a precious substance that allowed Australians to outpace the world in technology.
Okay, that's pretty funny. But also, here's the funny thing is that if Australium was really a revolutionary resource, right, the first people to get at it would have actually been Aboriginal Australians who had been in the continent for, thousands of years, I think tens of thousands of years before the arrival of the convicts from the UK
This allowed the war to
or England at the time.
continue even further. Team Fortress Classic looks like a completely different game, but it's part of the same history and was meant to be set in 1930, 40 years after the Immortality machines were created. The present day, or the time you mostly play the game in, is 1972. The maidservant, now the administrator or the voiceover in-game,
We have captured the control point.
seems to have the motive of keeping
Oh,
both sides fighting forever. She works for both sides with her assistant Miss Pauling, which both teams are unaware of. I'll get into why that is later. There's also a secret third brother that Zephaniah Man tried to smite at birth, but was taken away and raised by Eagle. He eventually ate the offspring of the Eagles and escaped to build his own empire, which is wild.
this is just weird, though. It's funny. There's the old trope. So if you ever look at presidents, ultra powerful CEOs, other high level, almost always men, if you look in their background, you notice that they often have absent fathers or extremely neglectful fathers. And it's tough to know, right? For the vast majority of people, if you, I'll speak for men because that's what I am, right? Because the vast majority of men not having a father figure in the home or having an extremely abusive one results in higher rates of early death, cancer, a high blood pressure, heart disease, obviously every mental illness, right? Anxiety, depression. They're more likely to commit crimes, more likely to fail out of school. Every single bad outcome percolates down from that, right? It's pretty incredible what happens. And certainly some of this is just a function of resources, right? Poverty also tracks with a lot of those things, and having one income instead of two can certainly impact that. But there's more to it, I think. And for 99% of people, right, the absence of a father leads to them seeking attention in ways that aren't good or healthy, or right, seeking something, right, seeking validation, I'll say. But for this tiny subset of people, right, Jeff Bezos is another great example, whose birth father abandoned him. A tiny minority, a one in 10,000, 1 in 100,000 people who have these absent fathers, they decide that they're going to get the validation they want from the universe. They're going to become the president. They're going to become the richest man on earth. That something drives them to achieve these things. And the truth is, I can't imagine that they're happy, right? Like, imagine having that much money or that much power and still wanting more, right? That part of you that says you're not good enough, right? That voice, it has to be so loud, and nothing you do seems to drown it out. Again, you and I, if we reach Jeff Bezos levels of wealth, well, we would stop long before we got to that point. Most of us would get enough money that we'd never have to work again, and we would pursue our hobbies or spend time with our families, right? Some of us might push on further. Some of us might instead turn our attention to charitable enterprises, right? Some of us might continue to earn money so we could buy our parents a house, etc. But the point is, at some point that altruism takes over, and this subset of people I'm using him as an example because his biography is very public, but I suspect that many of them are like this. Something compels them, even after they cross that threshold, to just buy and spend and do more. And it's sort of a sad way to live, I think.
I know. He came back and he killed both brothers before sending his robot army to take over Manco, which is still being run by Saxton Hale, the grandson of Barnabas Hale, Zephaniah Man's friend from the beginning. In the next comic, it's revealed that the robot war, like most battles in this story, reached a stalemate. Grey Man concedes, offering a new proposition. He challenges Saxton Hale to a duel in hand-to-hand combat, as Manco has a rule that if any other company CEO can beat Hale in hand-by-hand combat, they take over the company. Quite a dauntless proposition, considering earlier in that comic, Hale destroyed a plane with his bare hands whilst fighting a Yeti. The Grey had a trick. He promoted a little girl to the CEO position so that Hale would have to beat a child. He couldn't do it, and now a small girl is the CEO of Manco.
I love how he illustrates Mark Zuckerberg as the CEO, the equivalent of a little girl. Mark Zuckerberg is a strange man who is hard to understand, right? And not for the reasons that you think. Mark Zuckerberg, right? You have to think, if you're a multi-billionaire, you can basically hire a prestigious public relations firm to do nothing but manage your image. So when he is photographed out in public, the clothes he's wearing, his haircut, even much of the way he conducts himself in interviews, those things can be coached by a PR team. And the vast majority of celebrities and high net worth individuals that are in the public spotlight at all, they have a PR rep and a PR team that works to cultivate their image. Mark Zuckerberg has maybe the worst public image of any person, any person, maybe just full stop, right? He's seen as unlikable, robotic, lizard-like, not human. I mean, do you know how bad your public image has to be that people don't even think you're a real human being, right? But Mark Zuckerberg manages to achieve it. And it doesn't shock me that he's a weirdo. Again, you have to be kind of a weirdo to be that big, to run a company that size and scale. But it surprises me that he hasn't even tried to not be a weirdo.
Jackson Hale is forced to leave the country and he fires the mercenaries. They all flee to their respective countries and that's it. Until that is, Miss Pauling finds the soldier working as a tour guide for celebrity houses and tells him that she's trying to get the band back together. The Pyro has become a millionaire CEO of Frontier Engineering, but still isn't happy. Soldier and Pauling get his attention by lighting a fire on an opposing skyscraper, reigniting Pyro's passion for igniting other things.
That is funny. So just as we talked about, right, Pyro would make sense that he would become a CEO, obviously, because he's willing to burn anyone who gets in his way, which is a very CEO trait. It's not clear. Actually, I'm referring to Pyro as a he. I should do it as a they since gender unspecified. But they definitely have a tendency to achieve their objective at any cost. Their ability to actually delude themselves into believing that reality is different than it is another great CEO trick. In Silicon Valley, they would call it the reality distortion field. And it's the idea that someone can be so persuasive and charismatic that they can convince you that their vision, their future idea, their app or a website is going to change the world, right? And the ability to convince other people of this is sometimes referred to as the reality distortion field. Obviously, for someone like Pyro, he embodies it. They embody it. Damn it. Damn you, agender Pyro.
Meanwhile, Grey Man and the little girl try to get their hands on Manco's Australian reserve, but it's all missing. The administrator had taken it. Demo Man has been living back with his mother for a while and has become sluggish and unmotivated, swamped by his alcohol problem, but took no convincing to join the team again. Soldier and Demo then make their way out to 2 Fort dressed as civilians, where Spy and Scout are about to be trialed and potentially hung for various crimes of vandalism and disrupting the town with all of the combat all these years.
Vandalism and making noise. Those are not capital punishments, but this is obviously the 70s in New Mexico, which frankly hasn't done much economic growth since the 70s. New Mexico is constantly rated one of the worst states in the union. It's so bad that you can drive across the state and billboards from elected officials who try to win elections will just remind New Mexicans how bad their state is. And that they will basically be like, look at who's in office now. Our state is 49th in education, 50th in child mortality. Like, you should vote for me because I'm not the person currently in office. Of course, and then they get in office and nothing changes.
Scout jokes that his last lawyer was Soldier, who wasn't even a real soldier despite his name, which makes Soldier, who is disguised, so angry that he breaks the new attorney's neck before the hearing could even begin. Both Soldier and Demo are then added to the hanging, and they're all on the stand, but Pauling busts in and quickly explains that the mayor can't legally hang anything or anyone or do very much at all, which saves the current 4 mercenaries from being hung. The town aren't confused by this at all and are considered idiots as the mercs fighting has caused lead to leak into the town's water supply, rotting the population and their respective brains.
This is true. Lead exposure dramatically reduces IQ, especially if you're exposed to it in childhood. This is why lead-based paint remediation is such a huge deal. Also, there's a theory that the general replacement of lead pipes in the 70s and 60s is one of the largest reasons that there was a steady drop in crime in the United States, right? Because literally fewer children, especially in already impoverished inner cities, were exposed to lead pipes. And with less lead in the water, IQs were higher. And the evidence is pretty clear that for whatever reason, people who score well on IQ tests also commit fewer crimes.
Gets a note from a babushka he visits once a month in Siberia for supplies. It's from Miss Pauling saying to call urgently, but he just turns it down and walks away. The gang
What a Chad.
hunt down the old lady, but she says the storms are too strong and the mountains are too treacherous to survive a journey to the heavy. One of Saxton Hale's old nemesis, Charles Darling, informs Saxton that the administrator and Miss Pauling had been manipulating Red and Blue by putting them against each other while stockpiling a gigantic Australian supply, the missing supply. He tells Saxton Hale that if he can get the Australian back and give it to him, he will get Manco back for him. Soldier fights a bear naked and covered in honey.
See Naked Tales of Valor 1 to 37, Scouts Wars Double Dates number 14. Oh man, if you ever read old comics, they used to just include these references. Old comics were so weird. They were so like not corporate, right? They were just like weird and off the cuff and didn't take themselves seriously.
They find Heavy strolling along just before the bear's mother emerges, which they deal with swiftly. They let Heavy know that they're getting back together, but Heavy declines, as he needs to protect his family and that they should just leave in the morning. His sisters say that they can take care of themselves fine, and they've killed invaders in the past anyway. Heavy's back in the game, and taking his family over to America with him, promising they'll never have to eat bear meat again. Meanwhile...
Fun facts about bear meat: parasites. Huge problem in bears, right? One of the reasons that we can eat raw and undercooked steak, right, meat, rare steak, is because beef cattle generally are raised in such a way that they don't develop parasites, right? But if you have animals that are game animals, right, living in the wild, the chances of them developing dangerous parasites or being infected by dangerous parasites is considerable. So you have to cook that meat all the way through. And you have to think, bears eat the animals that acquire parasites. So bears are like little parasite repositories, which means that if you want to eat bear meat, you're going to have to really cook the ever-loving shit out of it, which is fine, right? Which is fine. But it can be pretty untasty from what I've heard. The rumor is you can make good bear sausage.
Oh, Gray hires the members of Team Fortress Classic to hunt down...
Whoa, interesting. Wow, Team Fortress Classic really does look like future Team TF2. Yeah.
Our mercenaries. They know where the mercs already are, but they need to wait until the mercs get in contact with the administrator, as Gray only wants the mercs to get to the administrator to get to the Australian. Is it a good time to mention that Gabe Newell's son is called Gray? I'm just saying, it's pretty weird. It sounds like a bit of a diss to his son.
That's kind of weird.
Does he want his son to be taken away by eagles? The boss in Half-Life 1 is also based off Gray, his son. It seems so weird. It also turns out that the medic has been working for the TF2 Classic crew. He doesn't seem to care that they're against each other, saying,
"Hi, a chance to test my latest crimes against my Alice experiments? No, that won't be a problem at all."
To make matters worse, it doesn't seem like Sniper is very happy that they're tracking him down. Demo and Pauling find Sniper's house abandoned, but while searching, Demo gets sedated by him. Sniper explains that his parents recently died and that they weren't even his real ones, and so he threatens Miss Pauling to tell him who his real ones are, as she's the only one who knows anything about him. She tells him that they're actually on the way to meet his parents already, and all three leave and continue the mission. Whilst looking for Australium in the mine, Saxon Hale bumps into the Scout and Heavy. He asks them if the administrator sent them, and they say yes, even though it was Miss Pauling. They realize they're both just looking for the people that took the Australium, so decide to team up. At this point, we finally get to see the administrator alone. Well, not quite alone. She's got an engineer to keep her alive with an Australium device that's attached to her arm. She says that she doesn't need to be kept alive forever, no one does, just long enough to settle an old debt.
Dark.
Sniper, Pauling, and Soldier travel to a sunken city in New Zealand.
Alright, New Zealand is Atlantis in this universe.
Where Sniper's real parents, as well as the last store of Australium, supposedly reside. They're welcomed by Sniper's father. He was the one who suggested that New Zealand should be hidden in the sea for safety. He also proposed to the elders of New Zealand that they should be in an even safer place, space. He was shunned by the idea and built a rocket for himself, but baby Sniper crawled into the one-seated craft while his parents were arguing and took off into the sky. And back down again, landing in his Australian foster parents' garden, so he's basically like backwards Superman or something.
What? Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's no way you're gonna have a healthy childhood after that nonsense.
Sniper's father then confessed to wasting all of the remaining Australium on prototype rockets as Pauling and Sniper's mum get wine drunk. Too much so as when everyone's distracted, Sniper's mum slips off and flies into space in the last prototype rocket coated in Australium, the one thing that the administrator sent them to get. To make things worse, Sniper's dad ran off in a submarine, leaving the mercenaries to drown. Oh, and at that second, the TF Classic crew just whipped up. And to make things even worse, they just shot Sniper, and he's dead. The first mercenary to die.
Damn. Sniper dead.
The TF Classic crew and the medic took what was left of the Australium and returned it to give to Grey, as well as interrogate our mercenary. The head of the TF Classic crew discovered that Grey will be at least 150 by the time he takes over the world, and realizes how powerful the Australium really is and what Grey is using it for. He threatens Grey for some for himself and his crew, but Grey declines, so they bring him down to the torture room where Soldier and his girlfriend are, who I know I haven't really mentioned, but until this point in the story is basically just comic relief really. Oh, and she's Heavy's sister. Soldier, you dog.
Damn. That's a shit. That is a huge love triangle. Because obviously Soldier loves America and Russia is deeply communist. And this is the 70s, right? During some of the height of the Cold War. I mean, the 60s were a little worse, but the 70s were like an early detente. So I guess it's not totally unrealistic, but there's still a big part of the Cold War.
The TF Classic guy rips off Grey's Australian backpack, which is keeping him alive, so he falls to the floor writhing in pain. Soldier's girlfriend, Xana, spots glass from the fall, uses it to escape by literally cutting her arm off,
Jesus.
and gasses the torturer from inside her suit with gas, probably kickstarting that whole weird link between TF2 and the strange fascination with inflation. Grey
8.7% dogs.
tries to convince them both to take him to Miss Pauling, who knows where the administrator is, who knows where the Australium is, while practically still dying on the floor. Meanwhile, Heavy and Scout roll up just in time to stop Spy and Miss Pauling ingesting cyanide to avoid torture, and free them as well as the other mercs. Heavy says that there are too many robots to escape, but if he sacrifices himself, there'll be a big enough distraction for Miss Pauling and the rest to get out and find the administrator. Another guard rolls up and takes Miss Pauling hostage. Xana punches Pauling in the face, hitting the guard behind him, knocking him out to be strangled by Spy's feet.
Is this a weird fetish thing? Damn, this is so weird.
Then Pauling is dead, but only for like 1 second. I didn't even take it in, to be honest. Soldier just revives her by literally poking her, and then her heart starts again. Lovely. Grey begs Pauling for help, despite getting Sniper killed and almost torturing them and hunting them down. He explains that the administrator is way smarter than him, but also way angrier, and that what she's planning is probably way worse than what he was, and that either way they should
It's probably something that's like objectively good for the world.
stop her. The last of the Manco brothers then passes away, while Miss Pauling rants about how she knows what the administrator is capable of, which allows Spy to kind of get an inkling pretty quickly of what she was lying about, i.e. getting Red and Blue to fight against one another forever. The medic announces that he'll be able to revive Sniper in 6 hours. Were any of you surprised though, really? They couldn't just kill one of the 9 mercenaries.
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense for the continuity. Duh.
And we've seen Medic revive.
And if you've seen any comics from the golden era of Marvel Comics, no one ever dies. Everyone gets revived. There's almost no permanent kills in the Marvel universe between like 1960 and like 1990. Like almost nobody. Everybody keeps coming back with some nonsense.
5 people in MVM before. Though he does say it will be very hard. Not impossible, just very hard. Oh, but there you go, it's done in the next panel, hooray! Except not quite hooray. Oh, Sniper is super mad at the medic because, well, medic was with the people that killed it. The head of TF Classic enters, quaking at the fact that Sniper is alive again, and kills Archimedes with his rage. Honestly tragic. Take Sniper again, I really don't care, I just don't want Archimedes to be dead. Hey, thank God, medic saves him. Does anyone actually die in this comic?
No. I mean, obviously, if you've played one game of TF2, you know you just die and come back all the time.
Anyway, the TF Classic captain gets a call that the mercs have killed some of his own men and prepares to fight. Medic is still on this guy's side and says that he'll be right behind him, but the captain says that he needs an actual soldier, not a nurse. And if he wants Medic to be useful, he should just find Sniper and kill him again. Meanwhile, the others are trying to escape fighting blood-sucking robots that the Classic crew had released from Grey's munitions, originally used for sucking Australium from blood. Luckily, they are dealt with due to Demoman's extremely high blood alcohol levels, and without Grey to control the robot army, Scout and Heavy were able to escape their deadly diversion and reconnect with the mercs. Scout hugs Miss Pauling a bit too tightly, and Heavy finds out about the affair between his sister and Soldier.
Damn, that's dark. Also, damn. Okay, this is unexpected. Peter Griffin is Heavy. I don't know if I buy
This
that.
family reunion, the TF Classic team were able to get Grey's robots back up and running. Luckily, Hale and Nags were just behind the Heavy and Scout in a plane and managed to drop themselves along with supplies.
This is so much canon for a ridiculous, extremely simple capture the flag team game.
I have missed your bus.
Spy and Sniper try to distract the TF Classic Sniper, but Spy ends up being shot. Sniper barely escapes, but then manages to sneak back round outside the window and kill the TFC Sniper.
Oh, okay, that's the TF Classic Sniper. Okay, he's channeling some Metal Gear Solid right there, you know? Some like the end. That's who he looks like.
Naked, honey-covered Soldier and Xana, as well as clothed Pyro, Scout, Miss Pauling, Hale, and Mags deal with the robot.
Who is Mags?
Spy and Sniper come across Scout who's wounded. He managed to fend off a huge amount of robots, but now he's starting to see a bright light. And Tom Jones.
Tom Jones / Jesus.
She shows him his Tom Jones tattoo. Tom Jones tells the Scout that years ago he slept with his mother when he was young and ran away in fear afterwards. He says that the Scout, Jeremy, named after German 985, is stronger than he'd ever know, and that he's proud of him. Proud of his son.
Freaking awesome.
Aww.
Scout dies.
For like 6 hours.
Boom, now he's in heaven. Scout explains that no one on Earth appreciated his gargantuan muscles. This made God livid.
I am fucking raging.
And threatened to plague the world. Scout convinced him not to do it, and God said that he'd give everyone one last chance to appreciate Scout's massive muscles if he sent Scout back down one last time. Miss Pauling calls the administrator, but the engineer picks up. He explains that they need the Australium extremely soon. Pauling tells him that it's all gone, but NG can't even pass the information onto the administrator because she's dead in her chair. The TF Classic level 100 mob boss finds Medic and says that he wants the Medic to attach the Australian pack onto his back so that he can live for eternity. The Medic slashes him in the face with an Uber saw before giving him a cesarean section through the stomach.
Okay, that's not how a cesarean section works. It's not, you know, let's just move on.
He falls to the floor, but then slowly rips out the blade, confidently walks towards his former employee, leaps onto him and pins him down. He says he has no need for the Medic anymore because he knows where the administrator is and she can attach the Australium to him. This monologue was a bit on the slow side as Heavy had time to rev up Sasha right behind him. The temptation of
We all know that takes forever. Unless Heavy jumped over the corner revving as he jumped.
an anime death also got the better of Heavy though, giving the TF Classic boss the time to get out a pistol and shoot Medic. The TF Classic boss tries to tempt Heavy with immortality, but Heavy declines the offer, drilling his cranium into the bosses and body slamming him onto his knee.
Ah, that's some Batman reference right there.
Before he can die though, he attaches the Australian device and begins to go Super Saiyan. He turns the fight around and starts to beat Heavy. Medic's body is alongside the brawl, but Medic's soul is elsewhere. He confers with Satan about his deal with the devil. The devil owns Medic's soul, and since they have a majority of the soul, can send him to hell. However, Medic has implanted 8 other hearts into himself, so the devil now technically only owns 1/9 of Medic's soul, so legally he can't do anything. Satan is not impressed that a being has been taken from his grasp. Medic extends an offer to return to Earth for another 50 years, and if he is allowed to do so, he would accept most of the deals of the devil that Satan gives him, for the remaining 8 other souls. For example, Medic says that if Satan allows him to borrow his ballpoint pen, that'll count as a deal with the devil and he'll have 1 more of Medic's souls. He then uses that ballpoint pen as a detonator to induce labor pains into a baboon uterus that Medic had put into each of the TF Classic mercenaries earlier on when they were on the same team. These baboon fetuses are usually 30 pounds at birth, not including the fertility hormones. Turns out this wasn't true at all, and it was just a distraction for Heavy to come and rip out the Australian machine, though Medic had in fact planted all the members of the TF Classic team with a baboon uteri, and did have a similar detonator. However, the pen he was holding was of course just the fake from the devil.
Jesus Christ. That... Guys, I don't even... This is jump the shark. This jumped the shark at the 9-minute mark. Okay? So if you're like, wow, Paul doesn't have much intellectual commentary, that's because there's no brain power that can understand what the hell is happening here.
This is getting way too surreal, but basically the TFCO boss falls to the ground and passes away. A lot of dying and not dying in this story though, right? So who knows really. The Mercs have victory over the evil for now though. They have no Australian, but at least they're safe. And Medic has a new baby baboon buddy too. The administrator's Australian ticks on. The engineer says she's been dead for 4 hours. They're having to ration the Australian to keep her alive. And there's only 1 more stick of Australium left in the entire world, apart from Stiper's mum's rocket ship floating around somewhere in the solar system. The engineer suspects that the administrator has around 5 months left of life with the remaining Australium. She says she still craves it as much as she did when she was a little girl, and she's been keeping this going too long. She uses all of the remaining Australium at once, which lowers her life expectancy down to 1 hour. She's young again. And she suspects she has enough time to conclude this once and for all. And that's it. That was the last comic to be released, probably ever. You're now up to date with the lore, and probably just as annoyed as everyone else that this may never ever be concluded. Issue 7 has not been in the works for years. Jay Pinkerton, the co-writer, says, "I'm still contracting, so hopefully issue number 7 comes out, but if not, I'll happily get around the campfire to tell you all the plot." So at least if there's not an official release, we still might be able to find out what happened.
I mean, if he could reveal the plot, then everyone else could just write the comic. Like, you could crowdsource it.
I hope you enjoyed that. I was never too interested in lore. I just kind of found the game fun, but I found this video really fun to do too, and I'm happy to do more TF2 lore videos in the future if you enjoyed this one. So just let me know in the comments, like and subscribe.
Demo man with the 3D glasses, he can't use them. Anyway, you should like and subscribe to this guy. That was fun. That was great. I feel like I've totally caught up on everything about the TF2 universe. Did it help me appreciate or understand the game in any way? No, it did not. But you know what? It was still worth doing. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys learned about, I don't know. Anyway, thanks to something. Thanks to our patrons. They get access to exclusive content. If you want to see my Q&A videos, get the way in, check them out. You want to become a Patreon member. Thanks to Cole Foster, Command Unit, Caffeinated, Jack Flavius, Dr. Shadowcop, Porter World, Time, Brandon Armitage, Teller, and Astro Wonder, and Z1 Joker. Okay, guys. That's all I got. I'll see you in the next one.